Hey Johanna.
Hi Liam, how are you?
Good, I'm excited about the Munch and Discuss coming up.
What are we discussing today, Liam?
We are munching and discussing. I do not have any Monster Munch. I ran out of Monster Munch.
Oh, I ate mine before because I was so hungry.
We are discussing the output of our micro meet that we had a couple of weeks ago in London, thinking about themes, and hopefully Deb will be joining us when she's finished her drama. So we'll see. But I'm going to let the other people in now. Paul Bigland.
Hi, yeah, my name is Paul Bigland. I'm a railway journalist and photographer. I'm based in West Yorkshire.
And then we've got Hayden.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Hayden Sutherland, chair and founder of the Open Transport Initiative, talking about transport and interoperability data standards.
Ian Rush.
Yeah, Ian Rush, principal consultant at Data and Process Advantage. We help clients, a lot of the rail industry are our clients, in understanding their data requirements.
We've got Adam Sargent.
Hi there, I'm Adam Sargent. I'm a performance graduate at Network Rail, and I'm currently working with alongside of EMR.
Great. Anna.
I am Anna from Hitachi Rail. I'm a business development manager.
Ben Jones.
Yeah, sorry, I am here running around. Yes, business development manager for Shite & Bachman UK, who we did ticket machines with the railways.
Emily Kent.
Hi everyone, I'm Emily Kent, co-founder of One Big Circle. We're based in Bristol. We're an SME that specialises in intelligent video. And last year we developed a product that sits on board operational trains, gathering data from across the network and making it instantly accessible to those who need to see it.
Hamish.
Hi, I'm Hamish, the lead at Lens. We're a new company to the group, a startup coming out of Edinburgh, where we used to build Hyperloop prototypes, but we're now taking one of the technologies that we found in the process of that and trying to apply it to solve leaves on the line and low adhesion issues on the railways.
Great. Chris Jones? Nope, not got mic on yet. Jack Shields?
Hi guys, I'm Jack Shields. I head up the business development team at Whoosh, and we provide onboard entertainment and information portals to trains, coaches and buses around the world.
Great. James Fox?
Sorry, I got distracted there. I'm James Fox, Commercial Director, 3 Squared. We've been working in the rail industry probably about 5 or 6 years now, developing software to help operational improvements.
Chris Jones, you're there now.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Chris Jones. I work at the Department for Transport, so I'm senior client for the Southern Access to Heathrow programme.
Great. Katie Hodges?
Hello, my name's Katie from Apinster. We're a software development company based in Birmingham. We specialise in creating solutions specifically for rail and other forms of transport, such as defect reporting and communication and compliance management.
Okay, Marcus Carmichael.
Hi there, Marcus Carmichael. I'm the professional lead for operations and performance research at the RSSB. For those of you not familiar with what we do at RSSB, we coordinate the industry's research efforts where it sits across multiple companies. So within my portfolio at the moment, I look after Perform, which is the industry performance improvement research stream, and the Resilient program, which covers all sorts of seasonal preparedness.
Thank you. We've got Michael Milner.
Good afternoon, everybody. Michael Milner, Principal Consultant at Turner & Townsend, doing strategy and transformation. Long-time member of the group, but been absent for a while, so nice to be back.
Welcome back. We've been missing you. Oliver Craig.
Hi, my name's Oliver. I sponsor work on the Transpennine route upgrades. As Liam let me know on Monday, I joined this meeting very early. Other than sponsoring for the Transpennine Route Upgrade, I chair the North East Young Rail Professionals, and coordinate a lot of sort of like STEM stuff, I guess. Cheers.
Great, thank you. Peter Hicks.
Hi, Peter Hicks, Director at Open Train Times, another new paid-up member of Rail Innovation Group. I should say we, because I've had to take somebody else on already, to work with systems integration and data and rail domain knowledge with a variety of companies around the industry.
Great, thank you. Some other people popped in that process. I think we've got Dave Kavanagh joined.
Yes, Liam. My apologies, I was a little bit late joining. Yes, Dave Kavanagh from AdRails, organisation that's quite new to the UK, but we have some very interesting capabilities on escalator handrails and advertising and antimicrobial surfaces.
Cool, thank you. Dave Sampson.
Hi, PAX Trends, just looking at new technology for the rail industry as well as other transport industries, just actually come off a call on super yachts, which is about as far as you can get from a rail carriage, I would think.
It is. And then who, is there anyone I've missed out?
You missed me, Liam.
Simon, hello.
I'm Simon Brown, I'm Managing Director of Opal Rail. We're a management consultancy and financial advisory firm. We help clients with strategy development and capital raising activity right across the capital structure, from debt to equity and leasing solutions.
Thank you very much. If anyone else pops in, I will just call on them abruptly as they join.
I'll just introduce myself. That's all right. I'm hiding in the corner. I'm Daniel Pike, Business Development Manager for the rail sector for Clockner Metals, metal supply and processing company. And my role is to look into the railway area. Thank you.
Cool. Sorry.
Right.
Thank you. There you go. Right. Thank you all for joining us. I forgot to press record at the start, so I have to introduce myself again. I'm Liam Henderson, Chair of the Rail Innovation Group, and Johanna is also on the line. She's also part of the Rail Innovation Group, and I'll put that at the start. But thank you all for joining us. We arranged this this Munch and Discuss session. It's been a while since we had the virtual sessions. We hoped that we'd be able to have more in-person events when it got into the autumn. We managed to have one before I think things got more complicated. We still plan to have more micromeet events around the country, but obviously we're sensitive to restrictions that are coming or going. I think we'll find out more this afternoon. As yet, workplaces haven't been affected, but we don't want to sort of plough in and look irresponsible. So for the minute, we're just seeing what guidance comes out. If we are able to get out and about, our first stops will probably be Sheffield and Bristol. And we'll be having smaller meets of up to 6, 7 or 8 people.
Emily looks happy with that.
James doesn't know about it, but I'm sure he's happy. And then further afield after that. But the effectively what we would like to do is present what happened at our micro meets that we had in London a few weeks ago. Chris Jones and Anna were both there, and then we were also joined by Ray, Chapman, and Sadia. And we effectively discussed where rail was at the minute and what we could do to respond to the situation going forward. I think as well as the issues around demand and providing service at the moment, the general theme was around the fact that if franchising changes, then the incentives that we've been pushing small companies towards also change. And so we need to adapt and respond to that, because effectively there may not be innovation work streams in the same way, or there may not be committed obligations. So what can we do to get intelligence around that and also respond to that going forward? I challenged Chris to find out about the acceleration unit, which is apparently going to solve rail's problems. And when he knows about that, I'm sure he'll tell us about that. But I'm going to, if it's okay, Johanna, hand over to you. I'm going to show the slides that you showed us to sort of set the scene, if that's all right.
Yep, okay. I think it's also worth noting when we had the micromeet as well, it was before the EMRs ended. And I don't think really the thoughts that we had really affect it, but some of the discussions we had surrounding it were before the EMRs ended, and what that potentially could have in terms of implications for going forward. Although I think in the short term it probably doesn't make any difference to our overall strategy and the support that we want to give to innovation and people in our group. So, as by way of background to some of the new people that have joined us, and people that haven't been to some of our webinars over the last few months because they've been busy doing other important things to do with the pandemic. What we've been working on through that period is sort of like looking at what trends are happening in the UK, what's been happening around the world in terms of how we approach it, and also we did our own survey, and what we want to do is with the help of our members is put this into a thought piece into what we think that future will be. So if you go on to the next slide, Liam. So in terms of thinking about this, is that we were trying to think of some of the trends that are starting to emerge, and what this would mean for travel. So one of the things that we're sort of like seeing emerge, not just in the UK but around the world, and particularly with developing areas, is the emergence of what is becoming a low touch economy. And we're seeing this sort of like trend in all sorts of ways, not just in the way we approach hygiene, but in the fact that we don't want to get too close to people. There's a limit on large gatherings, the power of 6, which even the Prime Minister doesn't understand, and travel restrictions kind of come and go, whether that be at a national or a UK level. So some of this is about how as transport experts do we adapt to those new areas, and what does that mean for providing transport services. So then trend 2 that we're seeing happen, and I've just seen some new data on this this morning as well, is that working patterns are changing. And I think one of the things that I think in terms of how that will happen, it's probably still too early to tell what that reaction will be, because we probably have about 80% of the world that is still in some sort of lockdown, but there are areas where that's much more difficult, and even and if you think Sweden, which is in the news a lot, they're pretty much where they were 6 months ago. They're going into the office, people are using shared spaces, so that talks to the way we are social beings. But then if you look at say one of the things that I was reading about this morning in terms of changing working patterns, is that there is still a sizable proportion of people that still want to go into an office, but they might not actually want to go into an office every day, and it might not be the same office that they went into 6 months ago. So rather than it being city centres that are growing, what we're seeing is the growth of suburban offices, and maybe some of those shared spaces. So what does that mean for how public transport and rail responds to that? So trend 3, Liam, next slide.
I'm writing notes about interesting things you're saying.
Thank you. This kind of talks again to that, where we're seeing the office and where people are travelling, is that this is from Google Trends, showing that what we're seeing in terms of footfall, and this was again before sort of like cases were starting to rise, is that suburban areas and smaller market towns are recovering quicker than the big cities where we're all used to commuting into. So if you look at sort of like where footfall has grown the most, it is within towns that people have traditionally lived in, and then they've commuted into to city centre areas. So if you sort of like take Southend and Chatham are recovering because these are big commuting areas into London, and similarly with places like I'm looking at Burnley, into Manchester. It's a similar sort of picture, and this is kind of so this is also talking to some of the other trends that you're seeing. So Amsterdam announced that they're going to be focusing on the donut economy, which is all about, you focus on what people want locally, and you concentrate on providing those services more locally rather than central. And also, people looking at, these 15, 16, 20-minute communities. So that actually does support the trend of more active transport, in terms of cycling and walking. And I know that Andy Street, the mayor of Birmingham, has announced that he's, certainly looking at this type of trend. And then sort of like, so we've got these trends, so we're then sort of like, we're leading to sort of like, well, what does that actually mean? What thoughts does that give us? So if you go on to that, because I think the one thing that people don't like is anxiety, and that's part of what's causing, because I think I'm sat in Brighton in my loft, and I think I feel quite comfortable when I'm sat in my loft. I don't feel the need to go anywhere. I can do this type of stuff here, but if I need to, for those that were on in the early part of the call, I need to do some travelling next week, and I'm getting a whole load of anxieties about traveling because I can't get the ticket, so I'm like thinking, can I go, and that. But at the same time, we are quite resilient, and we have to find a way to manage this, and so we have to be more flexible in our approach. And in terms of that flexibility, businesses need to reflect that flexibility as well, and find new ways of delivering the same thing, so that we can continue to live the life that we want. And I don't like to use the word normal, but it is about meeting needs and living the life that we want. So how do we go forward to lead that future life? So then what's our next thought in terms of that? And we're all starting to think about what it is that we want to do. How do we want to live our lives? I think lots of people have used the past 6 months to reflect on that, not necessarily in terms of where they're going to live, but what type of jobs they're going to do. They might be forced into making these life changes, but equally, I think even people that aren't forced about it, is that behind the question of why people aren't travelling into cities? If we all decided, actually, it's pretty stupid spending 2 hours travelling into the city every day to do exactly the same thing as what we can do in our loft in Brighton or wherever we want to be. So we're questioning sort of like how our life balance, and how we get the best work out of ourselves if we can. So what does that mean, in terms of transport questions? Because everything that we've done in terms of transport planning for the last 30 or 40 years has involved using transporting massive amount of people into the city centre for 9 o'clock in the morning, and then getting them all back home in the evening. What does that mean for the timetable? What does that mean for the demand profile? Because we're already seeing some of these changes. And so how do we need to react to that? What can we do to react to that? I think I've already sort of questioned this, because it's still too early to tell what will change and what will not, what we'll keep, what we won't keep. So again, that question of flexibility comes into it. How can we as transport professionals help flexibility within the system and continue to act with certainty? So then that leads to the following observations. So next slide, Lynn. And this is the big one, is that despite what we're going through at the moment, and it feels huge, because I don't think there's probably anybody on this call or many people around the world that have felt something that feels as big as this, where we've pretty much all had to put our lives on hold for 6 months, or we've constantly been stressed or reacted to something. But ultimately, the big elephant in the room is still there. We still need to continue being more sustainable in our business practices, because the climate emergency is still there. We still need to look for sustainable transport. We still need to reduce our car use. We still need to reduce our flying. And even though, you know, when we weren't traveling around, when people weren't getting in their cars at the beginning of lockdown, and we saw sort of like cleaner air and everything, in the overall context of the climate emergency, it's negligible. And I think it's really important that we shouldn't lose the fact that on the target, that we still need to fight this, and we still need to react to it. Next slide, Liam. And then we talked a lot about in this group, because one of our tenets of this group is promoting equality and diversity. And one of the things that we're seeing with this is that whilst government likes to say we're all in this together, we're not actually. We've created new inequalities. And I think we did, for those of you that listened to our podcast, which would have been about this time last year, when we talked about equality in transport. Public transport is important to the social mobility, because people use it to get to education, they use it for hospital appointments. I think one of the facts that we brought up as part of this was that 10% of all hospital appointments are lost because people can't get to the hospital to meet their appointment, because they either don't have access to public transport or a private vehicle, they can't afford it, or they live in the country, you know, for all sorts of reasons. So actually there's a direct correlation there between what you provide as transport and how people access other services. So we need to be mindful that whatever decisions are made in the next 12 months in terms of transport systems and how we still continue to support people, that they don't unequally impact on social mobility and equality. And then my final observation on this, on the last slide, Liam, is that the industry has actually created a service that has become unsustainable. You know, since we've always said, you know, the growth of the last since privatization, hasn't it been great what the private sector has brought to it? But actually we've completely decimated public transport. Whilst there is recovery happening, it is very slow and it's very long. So we need to come up with ways of getting people to trust the system. And this goes beyond the hygiene factor. We need to give people the need to travel again, because in all the times when people aren't undertaking leisure journeys, aren't going to work, aren't having business meetings, and this is not to say that we go back to the way we were, but it's thinking about how do we put public transport on a more sustainable level to meet the needs of the people and the customers that it serves. Because I think it's interesting, in our survey that we did amongst our own members in early summer, you can see even amongst our own members, they don't feel confident that they'll be using rail very much and they'll be driving more. Yeah, and I think my own behaviours reflect this, in the fact that when I'm doing a local journey, I can still pretty much go by public transport, but all my long distance journeys of recent times I've had to do by car. So I'm just one person and I'm a reluctant car user. Yeah, my car probably spends more time on the drive than doing anything else. So if I'm, as a reluctant car user, are making these decisions, what about people who actually prefer to choose that as their preferred method of transport? So we have to, as a group, I think, find a different way of promoting that message. So that was just what we presented at our meeting. And Liam, are you going to talk through sort of like what other areas came up as a result of the output, or are we going to go into a discussion now with our other members as well?
I'm hopefully, Deb, have you joined us now?
I have, yes.
Hello.
Hey, hello.
May I?
I'm all right.
Not really.
I'm going to unshare my screen and reshare it with the output note then, which mostly was written by Deb. If I can get that thing out of the way. I've seen all your, oh, go away. Then I will share on the Word. Share here. Deb, I'm just putting up your document that you wrote nicely for us.
Okay.
Ta-da! This is the output of our discussion, which effectively covers those 3 points, which was flexible operations, climate change, sustainability, and well, innovation was the third pillar. So was there anything, I think you heard the whole thing of what Johanna just said, but Deb, was there anything else that you wanted to cover of what we discussed?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I think Johanna's presentation covered that really nicely. I mean, obviously there's crossovers between all of the things that are in our kind of themes list that came out of our conversations a couple of weeks ago. You know, the sustainability stuff is very much tied to the, you know, the looking at the long-term prospects of rail and, you know, the differences in not just modal shift but to rail, but also the kind of amount of leisure journeys that are going to be taken in the future potentially, and obviously the stuff that Johanna covered about you know, people kind of possibly opting to live further away from where they work, but so doing sort of less journeys but making them longer, which obviously has a bearing on certainly on the kind of business case for rail generally, but certainly on the high-speed rail case, which which is all part of it. So yeah, no, I think it's just worth noting that they're all sort of interconnected, really, aren't they?
Right. Yes, they are interconnected with the innovation landscape, which Johanna and I developed together. So the output of, I think, the longer discussion, Anna and Chris, I'm keen to get you involved in this, is that we decided that it would be better for us to focus on a couple of key blockers to this wonderful new style of system that we ourselves as a group could potentially solve over the next, let's say, 6 months, year. So we came up with a case study of ticketing, which I think, Anna, you have sent some more information this morning about it, haven't you?
Yes, I think it was last week, and I'm just trying to find my emails because I can't remember my thoughts. But one of my thoughts was, should we obviously we did discuss what case studies could we look into rather than doing generic work. Should we focus on something and then try and find a solution or an approach or trial some technology or something like that, and get involve our startups in this? And then my suggestion was, should we look at the other areas? So I guess ticketing goes under maybe the operational theme. Should we look at the sustainability theme and the innovation theme as well, and look at the case studies and what case studies we could do there? So I think that was one of my thoughts. And then I just shared some thoughts about ticketing and recent webinars I'd seen, and who I think would be, I actually did send an email this morning, I just remembered now, and who I think could be good stakeholders to speak to, because I know that, I don't know whether anyone from LNER is on the call, I don't think so, but I know they're working with Fairvantage, which is a product by an American company called Revenue something, and they've trialed that particular ticketing system, and I don't know exactly what it involves, but it may be just worth talking to them and having them part of the group. So there was just some thoughts.
Yep. Chris, did you have anything to add to that?
No, sorry, I was out of the room. I got another email about something. But if it's not the ticket and stuff, no, from what I heard.
Yep, no problem. Cool. So I think I circulated this document in advance, so I hope you all had a chance to read it. But it in effect says, if we were to go ahead and focus on, let's say, one case study per theme, so that was innovation, operations, and sustainability, the types of questions we'd be asking is, why do we need to do it? What are we going to do? And how are we going to do it? And we effectively agreed that we should consider case studies going forward in a more of a case study version, rather than sort of trying to solve all the issues at the same time. So if we go back to the themes, which were these ones, sustainability, innovation, operations. In effect, we're saying that the ticketing is the thing we want to really focus on under operations. And so the discussion within this group today is hopefully if you have any particular driving issues that you would like us to, as a group.
I think it would be, because we've got Ben Jones on from S&B, I think it would be interesting to bring Ben into that, and possibly some of the things that they might be doing and some of the thoughts they have on what the future of ticketing is.
Thank you very much. So sorry, we've been quite quiet this morning so far, this afternoon, should I say? Yeah. So ticketing is an interesting landscape at the moment, as we've spoken, Johanna, on a few occasions. So we have say 3,000 ticket machines in the UK. So we're obviously concerned that obviously the new way of the world is going to be all touchless and using their mobiles and other things, try and get your ticket, which is great actually, because it's really making us think as a company, what do we need to do next? The things that we're doing, obviously supporting RDG, not so much the DFT. DFT seems to be the financiers. RDG seems to be taking a much more central approach to flexi ticketing. Barcode flexi seasons is something we've been asked to do. We do gates as well as ticket machines, and we have to enable everything. ABT, as Hayden will know, I've even spoken to RDG about their plans of a nationwide ABT system, which is under review and about to come out early next year. So they have the thought of literally going to Brighton to Edinburgh and tap in, tap out. One key thing is about how you get the data, and everybody has a consistent approach. So that's what that's what they seem to be telling me anyway. Other people can obviously have their views, but there seems to be a much more driving view to do something and try and stop this. Different groups, especially flexi seasons. That's a great example. That was supposed to come out by now, but or at least at the end of the year. So what we're trying to do is look at technologies, mobile apps. We have a suite of products, and also trying to actually include many different collaborators. I don't think you can get anywhere without collaborating, ever again. I think we can't do things on our own. But I think the true forward nature of the country will be around contactless EMV. So ITSO will, we love ITSO in this country. I don't think that's got a place coming forward, or going forward, should we say. So we are at, my company personally, we are at a crossroads really, cliche comment I know, but trying to think, where do we turn next? ABT is a big one. Ticket vending machines has a retail hub capability that we can incorporate. They do more than just sell tickets. Can we help other retailers? Can we help your local coffee carts? Can they take the money? It's just opening up the APIs for us to help, ticketing and money, acceptance of money. Cash is still there. We've seen it increase over the last few weeks, as well as TODs and ticket sales. But I think we need to think a lot harder ourselves to try and see what we're going to do with the operators. So yeah, I'd be happy to share once we've actually got some ideas on paper.
It's interesting. You're saying cash has increased over the last few weeks, because obviously travel is starting to recover slightly. Is that do you know? Have you got any insights on who's paying cash? Whether that's related to the fact that students and school children are going back to school, for example.
So yeah, with school children, we noticed when schools went back, the web ticket machines that went up. We've got ticket machines in North London and around the surrounding areas. There are basic geographical locations that don't trust banks and don't trust cards. So now they've got a bit more. The anxiety sort of subsided as people are going back because the trains are a lot emptier. We are seeing that people are not afraid to use money, especially with the regimes. I think it's quite good to see a lot of the companies who actually said about the cleaning regimes has sort of helped towards people's anxiety. People are being more aware that things are a lot cleaner, washing hands, and that's just another touch point that people can have a choice to use a sanitizer. I will try and find some detail. I have no problem sharing the detail. I will try and get some facts off our guys, and just to show the way we have our ticket machines, then you'll see the increase in transactions, and we'll try and break it down for you, because I think sharing the data is quite key, for especially when you're
that would be
ticketing.
really interesting to see.
Yeah.
So I want to bring Hayden in.
Me?
Hayden with an opinion.
Open ticketing, not the way forward.
Open standards, open data, interoperable data is the way forward. Ben, everybody hears me say this all the time.
Of course.
The whole point is that, I mean, let's just talk about ticketing. When you say closed loop, and that's ITSO, that's any, of chip card, anything you like, any closed loop system. That was 20th century. Let's have a look at what the 21st century, which is open loop, which is anything that you choose to use as a token to tap in and tap out. What I'm also going to make you aware is I'm obviously talking about innovation, and I'm really keen on innovation, but we need to look at how this aligns to the other government standards and other government things, initiatives that are coming out. So if you're going to petition, Liam, Joanna, anybody's going to petition government, you need to understand. And what I want to talk, I just want to phrase to let you all know is, there was last week, BAYS, business, entrepreneur, innovation, that government department, along with DCMS, published a report on smart data interoperability. And they said that they would legislate to mandate involvement in smart data initiatives, to be interoperable, customer data to be interoperable. They're going to legislate, and they specifically, when they mentioned open banking and open finance, they then mentioned retail and then transport. Heads up, the government is going to legislate that transport and mobility providers must be interoperable for customer data in the same way. The writing's on the wall, this is coming, and therefore, if we are not interoperable, if we don't get our act together, and I mean innovation needs to get its act together, then we'll find that we're mandated and we're legislated to comply. And that means we're forced to join up our systems in a way that we have to, and we'll be told to do it, not asked to do it.
But Hayden, you sound quite, I don't know, you don't sound very jolly at the prospect that this might be legislated for, and wouldn't that achieve what you want?
Actually, I was on the board that was consulted and contributed to that report, so I have to be agnostic in my opinion. So yes, I was consulted and I actually put into that. I'm very, very, very happy about it actually, but what I'm telling you is that means that, as well as open loop ticketing, we've got to have open loop systems and interconnectivity of other data, which includes customer tickets, journey data, usage data, and that sort of stuff as well. And that's coming in as well. So I'm not trying to shake the thought. I'm just telling you that happened just last week.
So there's lots of sort of like comments, sort of like in the chat about sort of like TfL moving away from Oyster and things like that. So did anyone hear about the announcement for Nottingham this morning that they're introducing a smart card system? I mean, what's thoughts on that? Because I kind of thought that seemed like a backward step.
It is.
Can I just jump in briefly? I did post on a note. Amazon are trialing hand scanning for a retail payment system. So this is literally scanning your hand. And I think I've seen in transport, it seems to be incremental innovation. So, we go from cash to smart cards, from smart cards to, whatever the next thing is, mobile phones, for example. Open data is clearly the right way to go. But we should also be able to look at different technologies and see which is going to be the best operationally. And so, for example, one of the big problems we had in historically is people going through ticket checkpoints, for example, creating huge queues, particularly on TfL on the underground. People, that then created all sorts of problems on the underground in terms of massive queues on trains and so on. We need to look at the timing issue around some of these new technologies and say, okay, what is the crunch point for this? How do we get people through stations more quickly? How do we get them onto trains quickly? How do we get them off trains quickly, so that we can actually operate the network faster? That's one point. The second point I'd add is specifically on the open data point. Massive amounts of data are really, really useful in terms of operational management. The use of artificial intelligence to determine what service we should be running is something that must happen on a national scale. Because if the one lesson that we've learned from this, harking back to Joanna's presentation, is that the massive reduction in the number of people buying tickets is creating all sorts of problems that we don't yet understand how it's going to manifest. So if we see those sorts of changes again, so if suddenly everybody comes back next week for some reason, that again, the rail industry won't be able to deal with the change in volume. So we need to look at the dynamics of what's going on, and ticketing purchase is absolutely the key way of doing this.
I think the hand scanning is interesting, because I'm going to swear at Ben now, because Cubic have been developing something using hand scans, haven't they? And I don't know where that's got to, whether they've actually got anyone interested or.
There was supposed to be a trial with LNDR in King's Cross. It's fallen through, for what I heard. Everybody's doing everything. So facial recognition, we played with that. Airgate, which is done by Siemens, they played with it. We played with it. The hand scanner from Amazon, interesting concept. We're even doing deep vein scanning. Linking it with an open loop ABT system. So there are lots of things coming which can, as Hayden, I do agree, it's an IDBT, it doesn't matter what it is, it's a token. It just says you are you. So it's, yes, everybody's trying everything, but I think it's obviously a lot harder than people think. But
it's difficult to find the focus on what will work. Can I bring Chris Jones in, because he wants to pick up on one of David's points.
Thanks, Joanna. Yeah, so it's about what the pinch points are, and it's essentially because in Britain the gates are always closed. Primarily when you put your ticket in, it validates and opens the gates. That causes a huge backlog of people. So in Japan, they're primarily open, and if your ticket doesn't validate, they then close. But the difference in that is it's not the technology you use, it's a social thing but simply people in Britain always try and get away with stuff like generally quite dodgy in comparison to in Japanese society. So there's a much broader question to that about behaviour change. How do we get people using the rail systems to be more honest?
I wonder how dishonest people actually are, because I don't know whether anybody saw something on Twitter a couple of days ago from Christian Woolmar, one of the railway journalists. He went on, because of the lack of ticket checking going on, that people could effectively travel for free, and lots of people apparently got on Twitter and said, I'm still buying my tickets. So I think the majority of people are still quite honest, I think, and it's just a small minority. I'm conscious we've got 10 minutes and we've spent a lot of time talking about ticketing, because I think it's one of the areas that touches us the most. But I want to sort of bring in some of our other members into the discussion in terms of the other areas, particularly around the operational sustainability. In terms of what we should be looking at, and what in terms of case studies. Has anyone got a case study that they would like to share and to help us sort of take direction of this work forward in terms of those themes?
Well, let's pick on Emily, who has a new technology that can tell you where to chop trees down.
That doesn't sound very sustainable.
I was just trying to unmute myself to make that practically possible. No, we're able to select only. No, so absolutely, as you're right, Johanna, it's our perspectives from the operational side. And again, the massive changes in working practices, meaning those that used to be out on the routes and literally trackside, understanding what is happening on the routes, we're not able to do that, both for safety reasons and also because of this kind of socially restricted reasons of actually working as a team. So in fact, the capability that we've created has had to accelerate to respond to those changes in working practices, because although human patterns have changed, vegetation still grows, animals are still on the track, the infrastructure needs to be there for when it becomes busier again. So it's kind of, that was not an opportunity for things to stand still. Those requirements were still there, but the human behaviour around it wasn't able to work in the same way as previously. So the challenge that we've been involved with on the with Network Rail partners and across Wales has been how to deliver that data to those that need to see it from a road environment. And again, it's about this open access and that interoperability as well. So if we can collect the data, that it can be used for multiple purposes, for multiple objectives, not in a restricted kind of proprietary way, but again, about getting what's needed into the hands of those who need it. So we've had to respond to kind of human behaviour change, in the fact that nothing else stands still. Like you say, trees still grow, still need looking after, vegetation grows up, and it all still has to be there for when passenger numbers grow and freight continues to travel through those tracks. So we've had to respond rapidly, and our technology was capable of doing that. But yes, it's interesting having to go from what was very kind of technology based to actually what's very human based as well now, given the changes that we all suddenly had to deal with.
I think it's interesting that has come up as a sort of like, open access, interoperability, collaborations come through again. Is anyone getting a feeling that there is more collaboration involved? So actually there is more of an opportunity for innovation and to change the way we do things?
Yeah, I mean, I expect someone else will have a comment, but certainly from our perspective as a small SME, but beginning our journey thanks to being part of this group and being able to kind of talk about this in really interested forums. Our challenge was initially talking to lots of disparate groups within Network Rail to try and get response and make things evolve. But we found that actually there's been much more collaboration coming because of the crisis as well. So people have made decisions much more rapidly, and with a much kind of broader kind of view on how this can work collaboratively across many teams rather than just their own siloed one. So yeah, we've noticed a really rapid change over the last sort of 4, 5, 6 months now.
How long do you...
Oh, sorry, Liam.
So I was literally going to say, Emily, from your sense, how long do you think that sense of making decisions rapidly, because we're in a period of change, but as people get used to it being a period of change and uncertainty, will their old behaviours sink back in?
Yes, yeah, so it's interesting. I think if it had come to a close and everything was normal again at the start of the summer, it's kind of, we didn't know if there was going to be this quick spike and somehow everything would be solved back to normal. It could have sort of bounced back to the way things were. But I think because we're now looking at the long-term nature of this and how we all manage this going forward, we're now looking, all of us, I think, looking into the spring until there's any significant change. Otherwise, I think that length of time, because it will be 12 months, we'll start to embed that sort of behaviour. And because so much collaboration has come out of it, so many, we've made some real advances, and there have been real advantages in having that contact and that capability. I can't see why people would row back on that and try and slow things down again, as long as there's compliance and safety and standards around it. But why would you go from saying we all access that data, that's really valuable, but now we're going to go back to having it on hard drives and tuck it out of the way from people and and put those restrictions on it again? That's just from our perspective. So I think because it is a long-term nature, as I say, we'll be in it 12 months at least. I think that will last, but yeah, time will tell.
I was just going to say, well, Liam, everyone, I completely agree, Emily. I think it is something that people are going to sort of hopefully get their heads around and then sort of run with, really, this idea of collaboration, which is, I mean, obviously it's always tricky and a kind of, when you're in a sort of competitive market as such, to collaborate on some of this stuff. But I guess that this group has got a really good sort of track record and ability really to kind of pull things like best practice around innovation together. So that's something that we can maybe look at as a group when we're thinking about, you know, perhaps this ticketing thing. You know, everyone's described so many different examples of what we're looking at here in the UK. There's probably tons of examples from across Europe and further afield, you know, looking at that kind of thing. So obviously we've got quite a particular kind of you know, sort of regulatory sort of framework, but then again, you know, I think everything's up for grabs at the moment, isn't it? So we don't even know if that's going to change. So so yeah, I think it is a good opportunity to collaborate, and I think, to be honest, I think we're going to be, I don't want to end on a depressing note, but I think we might end up being in a post-pandemic environment for some time yet. I don't, you know, like maybe forever. So, you know, it's not like, I don't think that we can look realistically at some sort of an end point that we can then go back to normal, which we could look at as a positive. Do you know what I mean? It's like, this is going to be sort of like new ways of working that will have to continue on into the future. So yeah, that was all I wanted to say, really. Oh, I did want to say one other thing that, Emily, something you said made me think of, which was, I've been doing some work, obviously I work a lot in the high-speed environment, and been doing some work on looking at HS2 and nature and the ecological arguments around high-speed and HS2 specifically. And it's very interesting to look now at how there are starting to be some real collaborations between ecologists working both on the project and sort of, you know, future sort of looking at high-speed rail more generally. So looking at sort of ecologists and IT specialists, because a lot of the ecological work that's now being done is not actually people sort of wading around in sort of wetlands or what have you in their waders. Obviously some of it is, but a lot of it is actually very sort of data and IT kind of driven. So it's really interesting to start to see some of those things, and that sounds like a really obvious thing, but when I read it I thought, actually, that's, you know, I wouldn't necessarily have thought of that. And there's a lot of the kind of tier one companies now that are associated with HS2 that are actually pulling together those kind of collaborations within their organisations. So again, it's just another example of where actually, you know, I think the UK rail industry is quite fleet of foot actually around some of this stuff. You know, we're always, you know, being regarded as like, you know, a bit like dinosaurs in the rail industry, and I sort of take it that we are sometimes, but we are not completely. Like, you know, there is lots of innovation happening, and I think there's loads of opportunities to do more. That's my 2 pennyworth. Thank you.
Thank you, Deb.
Sorry, I haven't got my video on. I had to get up really early and run out the door for an emergency, so you don't want to see what I look like.
Deb, it's Hayden. That's a really interesting point, though, as the Rail Innovation Group setting out frameworks and guidance on what is innovation and almost guardrails for innovation and what to do and best practice in innovation in this transport industry should be, really, if we're going to put stuff forward, and we should advocate that, and we should stick to those as well.
Yeah, I agree.
Absolutely. Because all too often I see innovation people going off, oh, let's do some innovation here and let's do innovation there. And they just go off and they do something siloed and they reinvent the wheel or reinvent the train wheel. And they don't learn from what others have done already. They don't build on the shoulders of giants. And then they go, oh, we've done this. And you go, yeah, but they did that over there last year and that didn't work. Or anything like that. There's loads of other examples.
Great. I think that's taken us till 1 p.m. But is there anything, I know at the start we said we wanted to think about other areas of focus, but one of them seems to be this sort of guidebook of best practice for innovation, which is sounds quite doable and positive. We've got the theme of ticketing. Is there something else around the sustainable idea that we forgot that I had not captured correctly? Anyone? No?
I think the technology that we're currently looking at is maybe quite different to what most people do here. It seems like everyone's quite digital and data. Right now, given our stage, we're quite early, so we're developing a hardware solution. And I certainly think from speaking with like the RSSB and the ARG and some of the people in the area that we're trying to operate in, there has been like a little bit of a push towards trying to get new hardware solutions onto some of the new projects that they've had the opportunity to look at, just because there's been a downtime in the amount of maintenance that how much there's been throughput on the lines. So they've had more chance to look at more new maintenance solutions that are perhaps more sustainable. Certainly with Network Rail, there's a robotics call right now for new devices to monitor and measure track conditions. And I think their call with the CPC was at least looking at trying to put new hardware solutions in place and see if they can start to implement them, whereas in normal times it was perhaps too busy for them to really get any good data from those, or really give the bandwidth to look at that. So in terms of like an opportunity for hardware products to enter the market, I think some of the key stakeholders are looking at trying to build that in a bit more. And that's something that we've noticed. We're maybe a tad early to be able to capitalize on that fully, but there's definitely, in terms of trying to put new innovation in place, I think that would be a good thing to look at.
Great, thank you for that, Hamish. I think actually there's something we probably might return to in more detail, probably at the next Munch and Discuss. I'm aware of timing, so it's 1 p.m. I don't want to overrun. So obviously this is the start of a exciting phase, and I expect to see your on screens in the next couple of months. We will obviously write up a note for this and circulate it, and then hopefully either see you in person around the country or next time on a Munch and Learn. So I think that's good. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Cheers.
Guys.
Cheers.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.